That comprises 62 miles. Within, I'm just going to zero you in. This here, right there, that's our inner harbor. That's the DPA area. So of all our waterfront that's available, it's a very small portion that is designated port area. And looking more closely at that, this is that inner harbor area. And today, and that is in total 87 acres. So just to put that in scale, some of the other cities have, 100 acres available, or 200 acres, or 10 acres. All told, and this is from our 2009 harbor plan, with 87 acres devoted within the designated port area. 71% of that is coded or considered to be industrial, 12% commercial, 7% underutilized, and 9% is other. In other is mostly the grandfathered uses.
I think they're the state-owned uses, like
the
parks
state-owned
and the
uses?
Coast Guard
Okay.
station and the. Yeah.
All right, so our state fish pier is right here, and there's a Coast Guard station, which is, where's the Coast Guard? My eyes are bad. Yeah, okay. And most of it is privately owned with very few publicly owned parcels. And one of our challenges that we have found is in terms of what Ken was saying about the promise of the DPAs was to be able to bring in state money through a bond bill or whatever supporting legislation and financing vehicles were there to support the DPAs. The private properties are not eligible for that. So when you have a privately owned harbor, like we do, you can't bring in that public money. So the public money that has been brought in over the years has gone towards, the playground, open space, the Cripple Cove playground, the playground at the fort, the harbor walk, the I-4C2 parcel, which has been vacant for a number of years. And on the underutilized, what we find is some of the existing uses, such as Americold. It is the water side of those properties that are underutilized. So the big storage tanks on the harbor, basically they're wharves and they're are just not utilized. Everything's trucked in and trucked out. And so when we cataloged these things in the harbor plan and the economic development plan, those are the types of things that we saw. Sarah, is there anything you want to add to that?
Nope. No.
Okay. Yep. So what we have tried to do is to make the DPA program work for Gloucester, because again, it's in the scheme of things, it's not a huge footprint. It doesn't consume a significant amount of the overall waterfront that's available in the city. But because of its proximity to downtown and the concentration, I really like the measure that Jane and Ken have used, jobs per acre. That makes a lot of sense to me. We're trying to concentrate new uses within the DPA that can bring jobs to the city. And the way we've teased that out is the protection of the jobs in the fishing industry, a maritime economy, which we talked about last week, for those of you who were here, trying to bring in marine science research, have Gloucester be a launch point to get out to the ocean for different uses that are taking place in the ocean, but you have to have a gateway, you have to have a door to go through, a launch point. And so that's part of the transition that we're trying to do, is to use the assets that we have in the city in the marine science and technology cluster or marine biotech, and have Gloucester capitalize on its status as a port city. But that's an emerging sector for our economy that we're trying to make work. And then the third segment in the economy is visitor-based. So I'm just going to go through a couple examples on each of those. This is, one of the things, and we do zero in when we talk about the underutilized waterfront, there are sections on the waterfront that have just fallen into disuse and disrepair because it's a privately owned property, and the amount of use and revenue that has to be driven into that property can't necessarily, under the economic drivers that can result through a DPA use, bring the return on investment or even the financing in order to bring these piers back into full usage. So this is a challenge that we have, and it's mostly due to the private property nature of the properties within the DPA that don't have a bankable tenant or use to make the investments in the property, if you want to keep going. And we're seeing some successes, but we're not seeing, 100% success, certainly. This is one of those wharfs that we talked about. This is Americold, and this is just a huge asset that is falling into disrepair. Probably the building inspector wouldn't let you put a vote against it if you were ever to look at the filings. So it's just not being used, and everything's being trucked in and out some of those facilities. You can keep it going. There have been new investments along the waterfront. Fisherman's Wharf has seen a $2 million investment, Intershell, and Ann Malloy is here from Neptune's Harvest. Ann, thank you for being here. We always celebrate you. It's a great success of taking a traditional use and diversifying into another type of use, so taking fish byproduct in transforming it into fertilizer is a great example of an economy in transition. And so in Ann's, where are we? Down there to the left. This is the paint factory. This is an example where a nonprofit has acquired the property and will put a world-class research facility there, the Ocean Alliance. And they have their challenges in terms of funding, especially given the condition of the building and the need that's there. But this we're very proud of in the sense that it is a toehold. It's a foot in the door to bring to Gloucester a reputation as a place where scientists will want to come, have as their home port, and launch their expeditions from, for example.
How about that structure?
This one right here is the greasy pole. And if you look out the window, it's over there.
Is that like superimposed?
And it looks like there's a bunch of kids on it. And if you come back on Friday, if you can't make your way out, you end up staying. We'll be happy to take you through that Gloucester tradition. This is the Maritime Gloucester, which is an education and research-based center on Harbor Loop. And school children, all 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, going through the center to touch and feel science, technology. It's a STEM program, or at least it's emerging into one. But every public school child in Gloucester will go through these doors, hands-on experience with marine biology. This is, Sarah, where did you pull that picture? I don't want to.
Right, this is launched, I live from Maritime Gloucester, out on the wharf, out on the fort. And it was just an example. We've had quite a few people come into the city doing submersibles, and they want to test their underwater vehicles. So part of the asset that Maritime Gloucester gives us, it gives us a location that someone coming into the city knows where to call and say, can I launch my submersible from your dock? So we're not building them here, though we would love to, but we are launching them.
So this is an example of a submersible. I mean, if it's doing underwater exploration, instead of dropping the water somewhere, and we're getting those types of inquiries. This is an example of a property where, we're trying to put some of these properties, and they're very small. This is probably an acre. The Doyon's property?
Right, slightly under.
So this was landlocked, so they had no opportunity, within the DPA, so they had no opportunity for water-dependent use. And we were able to work through the harbor plan to have this property be put back into productivity, basically. And you're going to see a theme here in Gloucester anyway, where we're trying to have a diverse economy. And so this is a brew pub within the DPA, allowable under the regulations and through the harbor plan. But it exists side by side with your more traditional uses. And I think that's kind of the piece that Gloucester needs to make with its DPAs, is the side by side diverse uses. And this is an example of a business that was grandfathered under the DPA. So this is a restaurant within the DPA, and along it is a portion of our harbor walk. And then Cruiseport is another example where that's probably the best example of mixed use, where the owner has 13 fishing vessels that she's hosting between this property and a property a block away. And as a marine terminal, so it's one of 3 private marine terminals in the United States. There's one in San Diego, one in Tampa, one in Gloucester, meaning any kind of terminal is not municipally owned, as it would be in Salem, for example. And so it's a Homeland Security cleared facility, so we can bring in vessels from other countries. And it's a wedding facility and a restaurant. So it's an example of mixed use within the DPA, all within the regulations. And so as we go forward for Gloucester, our intention, our goal with the DPA is how can we expand the allowable uses? We do not want the residential and the hotel development within the DPA. I mean, this community is very clear about that. But we also need to bring jobs into our city. So how do we, again, have that ratio of more jobs per acre by expanding the types of uses? And that discussion is really going to be in the heart and soul of our harbor planning effort. And I'd ask Jay on that chart he had where he had DPA projects, non-DPA, he had one biotech center. Could that have gone in a DPA? So he had the example of his biotech center was not allowed in the DPA, had to be outside the DPA. As we talk about that maritime economy, that's the piece we want to look really carefully at to see if we can bring that type of use within the DPA. So it's marine related and not necessarily marine dependent. But that's a big discussion, and that has implications for the regulations of the program, and it has implications for the state. That's not something that we can decide on our own. And all of that discussion will take place in the context of our harbor plan that we're renewing and our DPA master plan, which is that required piece of our harbor planning. Is it chapter 5? Of the harbor plan, the municipal.
Oh, right,
yeah.
the
master plan,
right.
Yeah,
chapter
it's a
5.
specific section by regulation. Be interested. Do you have a harbor plan, Ken?
We don't.
All right, so they've got DPA's no municipal harbor plan, which is, we'll save that for the discussion. But that concludes my my overview. Thank you.